Hey, what's up guys? Hey, today I want to talk to you guys about how I bought these vacation rental homes in Florida outside of Disney World and how I crashed and burned with them over the past 3 years. All right, so if you've been connected with me on social media for the past few years, you've known that I've had these vacation rentals down in Florida, beautiful homes, built in just the past couple of years, big houses, gorgeous. I'll give you some background on those in a minute. And then I've been, in the Airbnb short-term rental space with those properties. I actually just this summer sold both of those houses, and I want to go over exactly why I sold those houses and the lessons I learned from buying short-term Airbnb vacation rental type properties and share that with you so that way you guys don't make the same mistakes. So back in about 2016, 2017, I really got into this idea of how do you turn liabilities into assets, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can pay for liabilities. First way is by essentially allocating a certain amount of your income towards paying for liabilities. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. So a car, your rent, or your house, or toys, or anything along those lines, including a second home, would be a liability. So the first way that you pay for liabilities is saying, hey, I make $100,000 a year, I'm gonna allocate 10% of that towards liabilities. In order to spend more than $10,000 a year on liabilities, you have to increase your income. You increase it to $150,000 or $200,000 a year, then you can allocate $15,000 or $20,000 a year to your liabilities. The second way to pay for liabilities is kind of the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad strategy, which is buying an asset that kicks off enough residual income that then pays for that liability. So you want to go buy a new Maserati and the payment's $1,000 a month? No problem. You just need to go buy a couple of rental properties or a small multifamily unit that kicks off at least $1,000 a month of positive cash flow. After operating expenses, after the mortgage payment, the cash flow that's left over, once it gets to $1,000 a month, then you can take that asset and take the $1,000 that it kicks off every single month and then pay for this liability. It's a very disciplined way of buying liabilities. You don't go and buy a liability until you have an asset that pays for that liability. The third way that you can take a liability and get it paid for sooner is by turning it into an asset. And here's what I mean by that. How do you take something that usually takes money out of your pocket, and how do you get it to start putting money into your pocket and cover its own overhead, cover its own operating expenses? We've seen a big turn in this over the past couple of years with Airbnb, VRBO, Turo, there's JetSetter, there's BoatSetter, there's all these different things where you can take things that are typically liabilities, secondary homes, vacation properties, boats, jets, airplanes, all the cars, all these different kinds of things that are typically taking money out of your pocket, and you can put them on a peer-to-peer rental system in order to make it generate more revenue. And that way you can utilize it many, I don't know how many days of the year or percentage of the year, but it's paid for majority of the time. You can use it for free a smaller percentage of the year. So that's what was going through my head in 2017. I went down, stayed in Florida, just a little bit south of Jacksonville for the winter time for a couple of months with my family. And during that time, we took the kids to Disney for the first time ever. And drove down to Disney World and just saw the area, saw how expansive it was, and saw how my daughter's eyes lit up at Disney World. And I kept on thinking, like, there is no better economic anchor that I can think of than Disney World. Right? Disney will always be around, it'll always be thriving. And if I'm gonna buy some real estate, I should buy some real estate around Orlando or Kissimmee, Florida, because that's where Disney is anchored. So I started looking around after that vacation and talked to a few people who were in the short-term rental space. The guy that I was renting from has several rentals along the coast of Florida. Talked to my other buddy, Brian Page, who will be on Spill the Beans soon. Talked to him a little bit about the Airbnb formula that he has on how to take properties and generate more cash flow, and how to take them and make them some of the highest performing Airbnb properties in a certain market. So as I consulted on a lot of these things, I started looking around, looking for properties, and I found a phenomenal community outside of Disney World called Story Lake. and this is a community that was just started getting built in the early teens, I think. And I found a house that was for sale. I don't remember the exact terms, but I bought it for $490,000. It was 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, about 3,300 square feet. It backed up to a man-made lake. It had a screened-in lanai, which is like a back patio with a pool and a hot tub. And it was built in 2017. So it was only a year old when I found it. The owner lived in like Brazil or something, and he was tired of the property, or he wasn't using it enough, or his kids were just kind of like lazy and abusing it, or whatever it was. But the guy was selling it. I was able to come in. I bought it for less, or a little bit more than what he paid for, but I got all the furniture with it. So I bought it for less than what he was into it for. I got this phenomenal deal, fully furnished house for $490,000. Remember my brother-in-law went there, stayed there. He's like, dude, what did you pay for this house? This has got to be $1 million home. But it wasn't, right? It's a very cookie cutter kind of neighborhood though, where they just, they went in to these different areas of Florida and they built developments to be vacation rental neighborhoods where people just need someplace that's clean, safe, nice, updated amenities there where they can stay there, and then they can go to Disney, they can go to Universal, they can see all the different cool things that are in Orlando. And so the houses are very cookie cutter, very plain on the outside, and just stacked next to each other over and over and over and over again. Just stamp, and they were printing these houses, thousands of them per year, down in that Orlando area. So I ended up buying this house. It was totally good to go, already on a rental program, and I bought it for $490, thinking I can rent this thing out, make a bunch of money on it, probably make a 8 to 10% cap rate, and went through the process of closing on it. Learned a couple things, that the short-term rental business is seen as a newer asset class in real estate, and because of it, there's not as many lending options and opportunities out there. It's not something that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, so it's not like a proven concept. So because it's seen as more risky, the lenders have an interest rate that then reflects that. And so I remember in 2018, I think it was June of 18 that I bought the property, the interest rate that I got was like 7.25%. It's like 7.2, 7.3% interest rate on a 70% LTV loan. And then I syndicated it similar to how I syndicate my apartment buildings, where I brought in an investor, gave them a fixed preferred return on their investment, gave them some equity in the deal, and then they had like some use of the property as well. And I was paying my investor 10% on 30% of the money. I was paying the bank loan 7.5 or 7.3% on 70% of the money, right? So 70% of the purchase price, my all-in cost, was at 7.3% interest rate. The other 30% of my all-in cost was at a 10% interest rate to my investor. If you take a look at the blended cost of capital across that whole thing, it was like 8.5, almost 9% interest rate, about 8.5. So that means I have to generate better than an 8.5% return from the rents on this property just to break even, to cover my operating expenses and to cover my debt service to the bank and cover my preferred returns to my investors. I thought that I could do that. And for a little bit, I realized in year one, we'd have to ramp up the marketing efforts, and we got it to the top 1% of all listings in all of Orlando, Florida. We were in the top 1% of all listings, and we had a lot of traffic and a lot of people who were coming in and staying at the property, but we fell into a little bit of an issue, which was there was so much supply. There were so many houses, and there were a lot of people from like South America who were experiencing hyperinflation at the time that just needed to get their money out of South America into some sort of fixed asset that wouldn't lose value. And so they bought these houses without needing a return on investment. Now I'm competing where I need at least a 9, 10, 11% return on my investment, and I'm competing with somebody who just doesn't need to lose money. Right? They don't need a return, they just need to not lose money, because if their money sits in the bank in South America, it was depreciating in value the longer and longer it sat there. So I had to come in and compete with somebody who didn't make a return when I needed a pretty substantial return. So that was something else that kind of created a hiccup for us and a little bit of a hurdle for us. During this entire time, I'm also building another house in a brand new development where I think, there's going to be some equity upside because I'm building it, I'm creating the equity. And so there's another development called Solera which is a beautiful, unbelievable community, a little bit further away from Disney than where Story Lake was, but it was like remarkable. And what you found was every single one of these communities would one-up the next one with the amenities. So there was this big, huge grand pool, there was a kid's splash pad. Story Lake had its own lazy river going all around the community area. But Solera's community area was like 3 times the size. There's playgrounds, basketball courts, soccer fields, and there was even a wave pool, not a wave pool, but like one of those surfing wakeboard kind of things where you can surf on a man-made wave. So that this community actually had that. And again, each one of these communities try to one-up some of the other communities. So as I'm marketing the heck out of the Story Lake property, I end up closing in like August, September on the Solera property, which is 9 beds, 6.5 bathrooms, 4,400 square feet, on one of the best lots in the entire neighborhood, where there was no neighbor on the side of me, no neighbor in the back. It was almost like on a cul-de-sac. It wasn't exactly a cul-de-sac. It was kind of like at the end of a street. But it was very private, you know, again, screened in lanai, these accordion doors, 25 feet of doors that opened up, and just, you could have access, indoor, outdoor access to the pool area. Just beautiful, amazing, amazing property. And then not only that, but we said, hey, how can we make this just super awesome? So we had some themed rooms in there. We had some Mickey Mouse themed rooms, some princess themed rooms, all that kind of stuff. And then we took the garage, instead of utilizing the garage as a garage, we kind of finished it off and we made it a game room. And we put ping pong table and a foosball table and air hockey table and all that kind of stuff in the game room, so that way kids can go and play. It was like it almost having its own resort in the house that you're staying at. Now, let's get into the economics of this. There were a lot of things that I thought we could make about a 10% return on. But again, our cost of capital was about 8.5%. So it was pretty thin margins, but I thought I could buy these properties in order to be able to utilize them for myself in the wintertime, for my team to have masterminds there, have events there, for our investors to be able to utilize it, and then rent it out essentially the other 9-10 months out of the year. Good idea in theory, but again, faced a few issues. One was the supply issue. The supply was so abundant, and the demand was there, but not enough for the supply. They were printing these houses over and over again. The second thing was they were always creating new developments that one-upped the other development. So there's a Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville neighborhood right down the street from Solera now that actually has a water park attached to it with these massive 6-story slides and a wave pool and all sorts of things that are right there on site. Hard to compete with that. The other thing that you don't realize is because of the supply was so great and the demand was there, but if the supply is so much, you have to really market the property for a lot less than what we thought we could market it for. Obviously, holidays and summer we got great rental rates, but in the off season, I was renting out a 9-bedroom house for $250 a night. A 9-bedroom house for less than the cost of a hotel room. It's like, how do you make money on that? It's very, very difficult to do. And then obviously, as the development got built out in both of these communities, the HOA dues started racking up and kept on getting increased, and that started hitting in the expenses. And there were a lot of other things that you don't realize when you're only renting a house, a 9-bedroom house, for $200 to $300 a night. People start coming in and start beating up the house. They don't respect it as much as maybe a higher end rental. And there was a lot more maintenance that started having to happen at the properties. Now, on top of all that, after a year and a half of working our tails off, having both of these listings in the top 1% of all listings in Orlando, Florida, all VRBO, Airbnb listings, in the top 1% of all of it, we're like hitting our stride. Friggin' COVID-19 comes in and Disney shuts down. And like the only thing that could have shut down Disney did. And so obviously people stopped. They canceled all the reservations for the summer and all that stuff. But then we had this massive surge at the end of 2020 and all this other stuff as people were kind of working remotely. But it just came to a point where I was out of pocket and I was covering these houses a couple $1,000s for each house every single month And at the same time, I bought a house down in North Charleston, South Carolina. My kids are in school now, and I had some other opportunities and stuff and other places that we were staying where I'm not able to use those as much anymore. So it came to a point where the earlier part of 2021, we decided, hey, let's put these things on the market, let's list them with a realtor, and let's see if we can get these things sold. The market was going gangbusters. Everybody's properties are trading for price points that we've never seen before. And I thought, let's just throw it on the market. So we put the houses on the market, even after, with the market where it was, and having a bunch of the rental listings and everything there, we ended up taking a bath between the two houses of about $60,000 or $70,000 and had to sell at a loss. That I ate, right? The investors did not eat that. They still made their 10% return and had access to the house for the past 3 years. And then my team, just with the amount of time that we were putting into it, and what we learned and the financing terms and all that kind of stuff, we just decided that it was the best time to sell. And the opportunity cost for where we could then redeploy our investor capital and our own time was far greater than the $70,000 loss that we took on these properties. So I'm still buying vacation rental properties, but I'm buying extremely unique vacation rental properties. You might have seen my video on the North Carolina mountain house, essentially a castle on the side of a mountain sitting on 53 acres, 12,000 square feet, 8 bedrooms. I think there's 9 bathrooms in the house. It's got pool, it's got a hot tub, it's got a sauna, it has a steam room, it has a kids game room, it has a grown-up game room, it has 3 kitchens plus a butler's pantry, all sorts of different amenities there, and we're crushing in that. We're averaging around $2,500 a night for that house up in North Carolina. I also just closed on an island just south of Charleston, just actually right over by Hilton Head, South Carolina, a 110-acre island with a single-family home on there that we're planning on turning into kind of a glamping retreat. It's a private island. It feels like you're very secluded, but you're actually very close to the mainland also. You can go into Hilton Head, go into Beaufort, go into Port Royal, South Carolina for dinner, easy access to and from the dock, and then a ton of amenities right there on the island also. So why am I able to make money on some of these other vacation rentals, and why did I lose some on the others? Well, here's the 5 lessons that I learned in buying short-term vacation rentals. Number 1 is market supply and market demand. How many people are vacationing to the area? Checking out how much demand there is in that area and how much supply there is in that area, right? Like the number 1 short-term rental market in the entire country is Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area, right on the I guess western part, the Tennessee side of the Great Smoky Mountains. It's got more vacation rentals per capita than anywhere else in the country. But it's kind of like Disney, right? A lot of people vacationing to Disney. There's a lot of supply, and on the demand over there is great, and people make some good money. I bought my property on the eastern side, on the North Carolina side of the Great Smoky Mountains, just north of Atlanta, where there's a lot more money, easier access to it. There's almost no vacation rentals, or very few vacation rentals in the area, especially for this kind of property, the amazing kind of property that I have right there. Taking a look at market supply, market demand, and is that demand just seasonal, only in the summertime? Is it only in the fall? Is it only in the holidays? Or is it year-round? Obviously, the more demand year-round that you can have, that you can rent the property out, the greater potential income you're going to be able to create. The second thing is bed and bath count. All that matters is how many people can you sleep in a property. The more people you can sleep in a property, the more rent you can charge. You don't necessarily have to worry about square footage, but you're focused on how many people can it sleep, right? How many heads can you put in the beds? And the more people there that can then distribute the cost of the rental can reduce their one-on-one cost, but increase your overall rental revenue. And to that point, the more bathrooms that match the number of bedrooms, people prefer that as well. So if you can give every bedroom their own bathroom, you're in really, really good shape. Third thing that I learned is the more unique the property and the more unique the amenities, the more demand there's going to be for that property. So in the North Carolina house, we took what was a raw room that should have been a theater room eventually, and turned it into a kids' playroom. We padded the walls and put foam flooring. It's got 15-foot ceilings. We have swings hanging from the ceilings. We have a bounce house in that room. We have basketball hoop in the room. We have a Nerf arsenal of guns with over 600 Nerf darts in there. We have an American Ninja Warrior equipment hanging from the rafters where kids can do all sorts of stuff. It is an amazing, amazing space that has the wow factor that no other rental properties have. So you gotta be looking for that unique perspective. On the island, it's a friggin' island, right? It's a private island that has camping, fishing, boating. It has access to paddle boards. We're gonna have boat rentals, fish boat rentals, kayak rentals, obviously, fire pits and all that kind of stuff that we can have on a private island where there's a bunch of things to do right there on the island, but it also has easy access to the mainland, easy transportation to and from, and to be able to say you're on a private island is friggin' amazing. So you gotta be looking for those unique amenities that you can offer to your clients. Those unique amenities will also lend itself to having a badass feature photo on the property as well. So making sure that if you take a look at the picture that I have of the castle on the mountain, it looks like a French chateau on the side of a mountain. And you can't help but look at it and be like, holy cow, I need to click on that picture, see what the inside looks like too. Same thing with the island. The island, we have a drone footage of the island showing it fly over 110 acres of these tall pine trees and these live oak trees and these beautiful palms all over the place that give you a wow factor where somebody's like, I need to go and check this place out and see if I want to go and stay there, right? The more engaging your cover photo is, right? People judge a book by the cover. They're gonna click on that photo and then get encapsulated by what all the unique amenities are for that property. So that's number 4. Number 5 is understanding the financing, understanding the economics of this thing. So one of the lessons that I learned, obviously, as I mentioned, I had very expensive debt on the property and I had very expensive private money lenders on my vacation rentals down in Florida. I did not structure the mountain house and my island the same way. I structured those properties, and I had a candid conversation with my investors. Hey, listen guys, I know you're used to making 8 to 10% on your money as you invest, but this takes some time, right? I've done these types of deals before. I can pay you a 4% pref on your money instead. But in addition to that 4%, I can also kick you some of the cash flow from the property, and that's gonna jump you up to 7, 8% that you're used to, and you'll have access to the property. What is that worth? Well, on the mountain house up in North Carolina, if it rents for $2,500 a day for 1 week, you're looking at somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 of real value that the investors are able to utilize, right? They can take their family out, they can host their own mastermind event, they can monetize it, they can take their business, their team out there. There's a lot of different things that they can do and get $15,000 to $20,000 worth of value based on a $100,000 investment, in addition to making 4 to 8% return on their money too. So I was able to structure it in a way where I gave them access to the property, and all of a sudden it makes financial sense for them to be involved in it. The other thing is I got the property, both of my properties, the mountain house and the island, seller financed at a 4% interest rate. So I was able to get 80% LTV financing on the purchase price up in the North Carolina mountain house. And then the other 20% of the money came from my investors at another 4%. So I have a 4% blended cost of capital on that property and on the island, structured almost the exact same way. I have a 4% cost of capital on these properties as opposed to my 8.5% cost of capital, which is more than double what it is on these other more unique properties. So I have a higher demand on these because there's less supply. They're more unique type properties. The cover photo is remarkable. Many more beds, many more bathrooms, more demand, and the financing is way cheaper than what it was on the Florida houses. So if you are looking to get into the short-term rental business and you want to buy some properties, be careful. Don't make the same mistakes that I made, and hopefully this is helpful for you guys so that way you get the best investments you can possibly find and turn some liabilities into assets in your own life. Appreciate you guys. Love you. Until next time, be your best.